Still the Supreme Court.
The hour is upon us.
County.
The Secretary, please call the roll.
Directors Huang,
Here.
Akbari,
Here.
Sethy,
Here.
Weed,
Here.
and Gunther.
Here. Director Weed, will you lead us in this this evening?
Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Moving on to public comments. Are any members of the public this evening that would like to comment on any that are not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Would any director like to add any items to the consent calendar?
I will make the motion to add item 5.1 to the consent calendar, please.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Further comments? Ed? Okay, Secretary, call roll, please.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. Motion to approve the consent calendar is amended.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. Moving on, item 5.2, public hearing, resolutions on replenishment assessment.
Yes, thank you, President Gunther. This item will be kicked off by Ms. Heides, our Manager of Water Resources.
Thank you. As provided in the District's Replenishment Assessment Act, a public hearing must be held on the second Tuesday in April for the purpose of determining whether and to what extent the cost of replenishing groundwater supplies within the district during fiscal year 2019-20 will be funded by a replenishment assessment. As the board may wish to take action immediately following the April 9th, 2019 public hearing, staff has prepared the remaining 3 resolutions required for the replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2019-20. To provide some background on this item, on November 8th, 2018, the board ordered the preparation of the 2019 survey report on groundwater conditions, or survey report, as provided in Section 7 of the District's Replenishment Assessment Act. As a result, the following actions took place. On January 14th, 2019, letters were sent to all interested parties identified as part of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, also known as SGMA, informing them that the board would be discussing and considering items pertaining to the Replenishment Assessment Act at the February 7th, March 14th, and April 9th, 2019 regular Board of Directors meetings. On February 7th, 2019, the board 1. Received the completed survey report and the 2018 groundwater monitoring report. 2. Declared its intent to raise funds by a replenishment assessment in fiscal year 2019-20. And 3. Scheduled a public hearing for April 9th, 2019. At the February 7th board meeting, staff reviewed its recommendation for a 5.3% increase in the replenishment assessment rate for non-agricultural or municipal recreation use in fiscal year 2019-20. This would increase the rate from $437 to $460 per acre-foot of groundwater pumped. As required by Proposition 218, affected well owners, operators, and owners of property with production wells were provided written notice of the proposed increase in the replenishment assessment rate for purposes other than agricultural and municipal recreation uses at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. The notice was also posted on the district's website. In addition to information on the proposed increase, the notice included the date, time, and location of the public hearing. On March 14, 2019, staff presented to the board the report's findings and basis for the recommended replenishment assessment. Notice of the time and place of tonight's public hearing was published in the newspaper, the East Bay Times, as required by the Replenishment Assessment Act. At the hearing, all interested parties may be heard in support of or opposition to the proposed replenishment assessment, the survey report, or the board's determinations. Prior to the beginning of tonight's board meeting, the district has only received 1 comment letter. On March 28th, the district received a letter from the City of Hayward, or City, providing comments on the district's 2018 groundwater monitoring report and the survey report on groundwater conditions. The district evaluated and considered all of the city's comments. Some of the city's comments are not directly related to what is required to be included in the groundwater monitoring report or the survey report on groundwater conditions, but are related to the district's alternative submittal or to the annual report required under SGMA that the district submitted to the Department of Water Resources on March 29 of this year. Some of the city's comments on the groundwater monitoring report or the survey report did not warrant any changes. As a result of some of the city's comments, however, staff made a few revisions to the groundwater monitoring report and one revision to the survey report. The changes made to the two reports are as follows. Text in the 2018 groundwater monitoring report was revised on page 3, stating that a larger set of wells is sampled during the fall program due to the susceptibility of the basin to saltwater intrusion via the Newark Aquifer. Additionally, text on page 6 was revised to cite the Ludorf and Scolmanini 2003 report. In the survey report on groundwater conditions 2019, the text on page 3 was revised stating the deep aquifer is hydraulically connected to the adjacent East Bay Plain groundwater basin, albeit with some impedance. Staff is currently preparing a response to each comment in the city's letter and will continue to further coordinate with the city. None of the city's comments changed the district's analysis, findings, or recommended actions. Copies of the updated reports have been provided to the board tonight, as well as a copy of the city's letter. Copies of the updated reports are also provided in the back for any interested members of the public. The city did not comment on the proposed replenishment assessment. For setting the replenishment assessment for the coming fiscal year, the Replenishment Assessment Act specifies the actions that must be taken through board resolution no sooner than the close of the public hearing, but no later than the second Tuesday of May. The resolutions, 1, contain the findings that update groundwater conditions and state the amount of replenishment assessment funds needed next fiscal year. 2, set the replenishment assessment rates, $8 per acre foot for agricultural and municipal recreation uses, which is the maximum allowed under the Replenishment Assessment Act, and $460 per acre foot for all other uses. And finding that the modifications to the replenishment assessment are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, provide procedures and statement forms. Should the board wish to extend the hearing or take additional time to consider the resolutions, the board may use the regular board meeting scheduled on May 2nd or schedule a special board meeting or meetings in order to meet the deadlines stipulated in the Replenishment Assessment Act, i.e. the public hearing must be completed on or before the first Tuesday in May, which is May 7th, and the resolutions adopted on or before the second Tuesday in May, May 14th. Approval of this item is consistent with Strategic Goal 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies, and Strategic Goal 3, improve the district's financial stability and transparency. So tonight, the recommendation before the board is to conduct a public hearing as scheduled and receive comments from the public on the proposed replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2019-20. Then, by motion, adopt the following required resolutions. 1, stating findings and determining need for replenishment assessment. 2, levying a replenishment assessment and finding the replenishment assessment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, providing procedures for payment of replenishment assessment, provided that the board does not desire an additional meeting to either continue the hearing or further consider the resolutions. And with that, I will turn it back over for the hearing.
So, Mr. President, staff recommends that we begin the public hearing process.
Okay. And on behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to open the public hearing this evening. This public hearing will be on the proposed increase to the replenishment assessment rate for the groundwater pumped or extracted for purposes other than municipal and agricultural recreation. At the present, there appear to be no members of the public. Again, the purpose of this public hearing is to consider the proposed increase to the replenishment assessment rate, which only applies to the operation of water wells to extract groundwater, not to most customers which receive water from the ACWD distribution system. Once again, there's no public. I'm not going to go into the ground rules of the public hearing because there's nobody here.
I would still ask if anybody would like to...
Still formally open the public hearing.
I formally opened it.
Yeah.
So as far as I
But
know,
I would still ask if there are anybody present that would like to.
so the public hearing is now open.
We're not
Staff-
making a presentation, we did that.
There's no presentation for
Sorry
this
about
evening. Are there any further members of the public that would like to comment this evening? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and direct for director's comments.
If I might, one minor clarification, I believe it's a clarification. Approximately 96% of this replenishment fee will be paid by Alameda County Water District because it does cover well fields which extract water to be then either treated or blended at the wellhead with Hetchechi. So I was concerned that the statement on the that needed clarification that yes, we are the dominant user of this water. It is part of our water system, and this is a fee that we will be passing on to our customers.
That's a valid statement. The Replenishment Assessment Act intends to fairly distribute the costs of operating and maintaining the groundwater basin, and as such, most of the cost is borne by ACWD customers on the distribution system because they use most of the capacity of the groundwater basin. However, for those customers that do use groundwater directly, they do pay their fair share.
Yes, thank you.
Just a quick comment, President Gunther. I was able to spend some time with staff yesterday with Laura Heides, with Mike Hollowell, and Michelle Myers. I want to thank them for their time during the hour that we spent because you brought great clarification to my understanding of the intertie between the underground aquifer basins from Nilescone Aquifer and the East Bay Aquifer, and clearly presenting what the concerns of the City of Hayward were. So I appreciate that very much. Thanks for the clarifications.
No comment?
Well, I'd just like to thank the staff again for a terrific job on this. And with that, I think it's time to close the public hearing. And unless otherwise requested by any director, I'm going to request a motion on the staff recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Is that a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we need a reread of the motion, or are we good, Bob?
No, the staff
I think we're
recommendation is
fine.
there. It's to adopt the 3 resolutions that are
Mhm.
identified in the staff report, so I think that's fine.
With that, Secretary, please call the roll.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. Item 5.3.
So item 5.3 involves professional services agreement and cost-sharing agreement for the 2019 joint ACWD, SFPUC, and USD Purified Water Feasibility Evaluation. And once again, this item will be presented by Ms. Heides.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. In partnership with the Union Sanitary District and the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, the Alameda County Water District will evaluate the feasibility of developing advanced treated recycled water to reuse purified water to supplement drinking water supplies. This study would expand upon prior studies, most recently the 2015-16 Recycled Water Feasibility Study, by exploring the upper production and utilization limits of reuse alternatives with the inclusion of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission as a partner. ACWD will act as lead agency and obtain reimbursements from the partner agencies for the cost to conduct the study. Adequate funding is being included in the upcoming fiscal year 2019-20 and fiscal year 2020-21 budgets for this expenditure. This item was reviewed with the Water Resources and Conservation Committee on March 27, 2019. Board authorization of these services will help meet ACWD's Strategic Goal 2.4, plan for future water supply. So tonight, the recommendation before the board is by motion, 1, authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Woodard and Curran in an amount not to exceed $850,000 for professional services for the 2019 joint ACWD, Sfpuc, and USD Purified Water Feasibility Evaluation, Job 10077, and 2, authorize the general manager to enter into a cost-sharing agreement for the 2019 joint ACWD, Sfpuc, and USD Purified Water Feasibility Evaluation with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission and the Union Sanitary District. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We had a discussion prior to the meeting, and it is, with all recycled projects, is it considered this will be a year-round, uninterrupted supply of water to the district, whether we can take it or not? Question.
I'm sorry, could you?
Is this foreseen as a uninterruptible, steady water supply, as other recycled projects are? You build a facility, and then you have to find a use for that water. You cannot divert it to the bay, because that's generally not part of the permit. You have to receive the water that's being produced by the recycled facility.
Correct. So this study would look at the upper limits of what we could do in partnership with the San Francisco PUC as well as ourselves to use a recycled water facility to do potable reuse, either indirectly through recharge or directly.
Right.
So it's going to take a look at some of those different alternatives and come up with a couple of alternatives at the end that are most feasible.
But inherent in recycled water in the legislation, it's not an interruptible supply or a supply on demand. It's one that you're going to take on an ongoing basis. Have to find a use for that recycled water, productive use. Today, our groundwater basins are full. And the groundwater reservoir arguably cannot take any more water. What happens in a case where you don't have a place to put the water?
So one of the things that the study will look at is our groundwater basin and how this proposed facility, depending on the upper limits of what it might be designed for, how it would work with our existing groundwater basin for water supply needs for ourselves or potentially for San Francisco as well.
And this plan is the same that was proposed initially by RMC in their initial study, what they're based on their cost estimates and programs for. So we're not suggesting that would be changed. They scoped, sized, and suggested as the amount of water that we could take through the system. So this is essentially the same proposal that RMC, the same company, had developed earlier for us, correct?
So it's actually building on that study, because what this study will do is also look at what San Francisco's ability would be to use water from this type of a project. And we're also going to be looking further into what some of the sort of logistics, water quality needs and whatnot are for doing recharge into the quarry lakes, which was one of the pieces that wasn't explored in great detail in the previous study. So we're going to be looking at that, and again, the groundwater basin in more detail as well to build upon that study. And there have been some advancements in the regulations and technologies and such, and more people doing these types of projects. So we will build on that knowledge to look at what would the plant look like should we do this.
As I recall, RMC came up with a cost in the mid-$2,000 range, $2,500 or so. But the critical number they used was a 0.78 recovery of the water put into the quarry lakes and then extracted from our well fields. When ACWD staff looked at it sometime later, that estimate was dropped dramatically to as low as 0.3 recovery. The net result was, using the same economic parameters, that the cost of water was $7,500 an acre foot at its peak, and averaged about $5,500 an acre foot for the course of the year. That's, again, my recollection of our own study.
So,
and now we're,
if I may,
Yeah.
just a clarifying comment. This study, as Ms. Heides mentioned, builds on previous work. And one of the things that we found out in the previous study was that essentially every 1 out of 3 years is either a wet or a normal year where we're able to fill the groundwater basin. So what happens in those conditions is you end up with sort of a stranded asset. Because if you're using the recycled water to supplement groundwater recharge and you have nowhere to put the water, it means that you've got this facility that you can't use, and it gets pretty expensive that way. So what this proposed study will look at is a systematic approach that not only looks at recycled water in an indirect potable reuse manner, but also how the groundwater basin can be reoperated by using desal more. Right now, on average, we run our desal facility at about half of its rated rate. What this would allow us to do is run desal at more of a full rate year-round. And desal is already our least expensive water on an acre-foot basis from an operational point of view. So what that does is free up more room in the groundwater basin so that you will have less frequency of actually filling and not having a place to put the water. And it also opens up the possibility, since San Francisco is really interested in supplemental water supplies, of furnishing San Francisco with desal water from the Newark plant and potentially have them contribute to a large portion of the cost. So because cost was a barrier, one of the barriers of moving forward last time, this is sort of a building on what we learned last time, and then maybe being able to operate more efficiently and with partners in a way that makes it way more cost effective.
Okay. Well, my concern is that adding desal at the end of the adds another $500 an acre foot to the equation. The mechanics of the cost equation have not changed. We're still putting water in the groundwater basin and extracting it, an average cost of $5,500. Add $500 to that for the desal, and you're now at $6,000 an acre foot. If San Francisco is willing to pay $6,000 an acre foot for our water, then fine. But I cannot imagine anyone paying that a level of money. Bosca members, and I sit on that board as well, and in that sense would be interested to see what the conflicts of interest are here, pays 2/3 of that cost. That is an outrageous cost of water. We're 4% of the total system.
So just one other point on cost, if I may. This project has been identified as one of the 13 Bay Area regional reliability projects. So another reason to go forward with the next phase of this work is that there potentially will be a lot of grant funding and other funding available, which also may impact costs. So at the end of this evaluation, what we're hoping to have is much more refined cost estimates and also put ourselves in a position of potentially, should the board wish to, take advantage of some grant funding opportunities and beginning to have the conversation that we will most definitely need to have with our customer base, even on the concept of indirect potable reuse. Okay. It does not take us to the point where we're implementing any recycled water facility. It simply takes us the next step of the way.
Right. Having read the analysis, I had far more confidence in the bar process, the Brown and Caldwell, when Eric Cartwright, one of our former water planners for ACWD, was on their staff. And I'm disappointed and dismayed at the finding in support of this proposal, because the cost factors were there to be addressed, and it is, crazy is as crazy does. These cost factors are crazy, and it just is not one of the elements that I would hope that we can pull the plug on this as soon as possible, because it may well go through. but it has not, we have numbers that at $5,500 an acre foot was too expensive, $6,000 an acre foot is going to be even more expensive. It's not a rational
So
proposal.
if I may, I think it's premature to quote dollar amount because we actually have new information, new scenario, and new costing that we need to evaluate before we come up with a number. The whole purpose of this item in front of us is to conduct such study, to actually update our understanding. Now we have a partner which perhaps would allow us to operate the system year-round and lower the cost. This is a study. We are not committed to do this. I think it behooves us to actually go forward to actually have a realistic, fact-based number before we start this discussion.
Okay. All right. We have two other partners in this, if I can continue on. San Francisco, which will pay a significant amount, we're going to pay $370-some thousand. But Union Sanitary District, the primary beneficiary of a recycled water project because of the not current but threatened legislation that will require that they find a place to put their water, is only going to it at a level of under $100,000 because their board didn't want to vote on it. So they assigned it to their general manager to authorize it under his authority. So I don't know that we have a buy-in from Union Sanitary District Board. We certainly have it from their, they have not stopped the general manager in the process, but they certainly have not endorsed it by formal vote.
I can respond to that. Two issues at play. I think there is a feeling at Union Sanitary District that we've done several of these studies already, different concepts, purple pipe, and so forth, that, you know, in their view, didn't really go anywhere. So they're reluctant to contribute to these studies indefinitely. Also, generally, the feeling is water agencies benefit from these kinds of projects a little more. So those are kind of two issues that are in play. And then lastly, the third issue is one of the stressors on Union Sanitary District was they were starting to get to the limit of their ability to discharge in their deep water discharge in the bay. Those pressures are actually almost not there anymore because of the amazing job that the Tri-City area has done in conservation. The actual amount of water that they need to discharge is much lower. So that pressure is gone. Director Weed is correct in that there is legislation just proposed at this point. It's a bill by Senator Hertzberg to eliminate saltwater discharges in the bay to 95% of their current level. If that happens, Union Sanitary District would likely get way more motivated in a project like this. But even this project wouldn't solve their problem. They would need to do this potentially and other things to reduce those discharges. So those are some of the factors that contributed. So therefore, their general manager, Paul Eldridge, did present this to the board and indicated that his desire was to contribute no more than $100,000 to the project. The board did not take a vote.
I'll pass
Director Sethy?
the mic.
You want to come back to me? I have some extended comments.
I had a question on how the partnership originally came about between Sfpuc, USD, and ACWD.
Well, I'll take a crack at it, and Bob can maybe add some to the story here. ACWD and USD have been studying these things for a long time, and my understanding is Sfpuc is now looking at ways that they might be able to find alternative water supplies, and it was brought about that we might be able to work out something to connect our systems or somehow use our systems and this potential for water supply to supplement their system as well. So, Bob, I don't know when those conversations began or how we've gotten to to this point if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so one of the genesis kind of moments of this particular conversation was the Renew It conference at Stanford University. I attended that, as well as Steve Ritchie from Sfpuc and Paul Eldridge from Union Sanitary District. And both of those gentlemen approached me saying, hey, are we going to do anything, are you guys going to do anything with recycled water, ACWD, and if so, is there an opportunity to partner on that? So this latest iteration, that was the genesis.
Are there any other agencies that have expressed any kind of interest?
In partnership on this specifically, BOSCA is obviously interested in representing their membership, who are San Francisco customers. And then I think all of the Bay Area agencies are interested in it because it was identified as one of 13 potential regional projects. And this, as currently sort of thought about, is unique because it's kind of difficult to do regional projects in the Bay Area. Los Vaqueros would be another one that has legs right now. But the Bay Area agencies have found it difficult over the years to do sort of a regional reliability approach, and that was one of the good things that came out of the whole BAR process. And this is one of the projects that is a poster child for that.
Nothing from me.
If Director Sethy would like to stew for a little more, I'll speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think Director Weed's costs moment might be reasonably accurate. They were at one point. They might change. They probably, if they don't change, I don't see us pushing forward. However, we don't know if they're going to change. That's not what we're talking about tonight. The world of water, I don't want to use, to sound a pun, but it's very fluid right now. We don't know where we're going to be 10 years from now. There are issues going on with the San Joaquin River. There are issues with the Delta. We know that. We don't know if we're going to get what we want out of the Delta. Tomorrow they may say, okay, ACWD, the Delta, you're not going to get any more, or you're going to get 10% every year. I don't expect that, but you never know. And quite honestly, the political community, the political climate in the state of California is not in our benefit. Whether or not it means that it's accurate politically, recycled water is popular. Of course, until you have to pay for it. And of course, guess who has to tell the public they're going to pay for it? That would be us. As far as Union Sand, I'm not real thrilled that they're not involved, or they don't seem to be wanting to step forward. But one thing about that is, in general, the majority of the Union Sanitary customers are our customers. So whether or not they pay to us, we may have to be the bad guy and take the cost, and they'll be the good guy because they won't. But realistically, the customer still, it's our customer. So I don't know how much that more, they may look a little better than us. I'm disappointed that they're not involved in this. I think it's a cop-out. Their board should take a position on this. They are as just the same situation, pending legislation, and their situation's no better than ours. In fact, ours might be better than theirs with Water Future. But nonetheless, we got to do something. The difference we have today is that San Francisco PUC's involved. That's never been out here before. That's a big difference. Significant. And that's why I'd say, let's look at it. If it had been just, well, you know, technology's changed. This has been in our IRP since we've had an IRP. And it's been 15 years out in our IRP, and I think it still is 15 years out in our IRP.
20.
Maybe 20. It's far out there. And I'm okay with that. I'm not talking about speeding this up. But I think this is a good opportunity to take a look at this. We have a partner that's San Francisco that is willing to spend some money. Like I said before, I'm disappointed that USD is not stepping forward. But that's all right. They're our customers too. We step forward. We got somebody that's willing to share some cost with us for the area, not just us. Possibility of maybe scoring something with this. Maybe it'll just turn out to be $600,000 or $6,000 an acre foot. Director Weed's right, and you know what? Then we're going to have a real tough choice. Probably no. But we don't know that yet.
Well,
And we don't know what San Francisco is going to do yet. And we don't know what the state is going to do either. What we do know is, whatever the state does, we're probably not going to like it. I could say that tonight.
I agree that San Francisco has some challenges with San Joaquin. They're probably looking at $1 billion to be spent on alternate water supplies, raising Calaveras to the next level, bearing the $150 million spillway, which looks so nice. Or I've suggested they look at Del Val as an individual, not as a board, recognizing it's not the board position. And they're looking at Los Vaqueros. Los Vaqueros somewhere in the area of $2,600 an acre foot. But what troubles me mostly about this is the beneficiary of this, we're argued, is San Francisco, not ACWD, and from a water supply standpoint. We get a little better, more efficient operation of our facilities possibly, with more utility in the desal plant. But San Francisco, the water is being destined for San Francisco at this extraordinary price. We're covered. We don't need additional water supplies. We have 150,000 acre feet of rights in semi-tropic that we paid $200 an acre foot for. We have water rights in Del Val. We have from local runoff, and we're looking at Los Vaqueros, which is going to be coming in at less than half of, I believe, at less than half the cost of this project. All of those makes us water rich. This project gives us no significant benefit, and if the real beneficiary is San Francisco, then let San Francisco pay for the study. Thank you.
Director Sethy, ready to go?
You want to go first, Director Huang, or me?
I was going to be good and not have a rebuttal, but I'm just going to say that there is actually benefit for Alameda County Water District. Having a recycled water facility is an additional local supply. In a extreme drought, when there's difficulties bringing water back from semi-tropic, it's always nice for our customers to actually have a available supply within our district. So just keep that in mind. We do benefit. With San Francisco's partnership, maybe the number will pencil out to the point that's palatable for us. But personally, for me, it is important to have a local water supply as an emergency. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, first of all, I support moving forward with the study. But I want to clarify my thoughts on the subject. First of all, I'm in clear agreement with Director Weed's comments related to prospective costs and to availability of supply. We are not in a water emergency, nor have we ever been, where we needed to rely upon recycled water. And I share a lot of the thoughts of President Gunther as well. Here's where I'm coming from. When I first ran for the board, and I'd been listening to it for 20 years or more, a lot of people in the community wanting to have recycled water or more desalinated water, and a lot of naive people in the community not understanding how our system works or what the cost of recycled water is. And in fact, I was arguing in public that it would be the most expensive cost of water for our community. And I'm a believer in recycled water, don't get me wrong. I believe recycled water applies in many communities across the state of California where it makes economic sense. And right over the hill in the Tri-Valley area, recycled water makes a lot of sense, but not in the Tri-City area. And so one reason I supported the original study that we did about 8-9 years ago with USD, and we put in $250,000 on that study jointly with them, was I wanted to disprove the nonsense in the community about recycled water. I wanted a good, satisfactory research study that would present the facts to the community. So if the public came forward here in a public meeting demanding recycled water, we would have the facts on our side to prove that it was in fact by far and away the most expensive supply of water that we could bring into the community. And it did not make economic sense. Purely operated on its own between ACWD and USD. But, and I also want to emphasize that when we went through our strategic plan, we clearly put it out 20, 30 years on our roadmap of potential water supplies. It was the last of all of our water supply options that we were looking at. Nevertheless, I have been to a number of water purification systems in California. I recall to mind the San Jose one. I've been to that one a couple of times, the one in Monterey, other ones. And so again, I do believe that it represents a potential future option. In thinking about this, not only before this board meeting, but for a long period of time, I really would like all of us to take the long-term view of what's going on in the Bay Area and regionally in Northern California. That's why I appreciate the efforts of BAR and looking at all the regional opportunities and where agencies can participate with one another. In the past, we've always operated in silos. We're breaking out of that mentality. I like that. People are thinking creatively, out of the box. What are the possibilities? And we can't just think about the next decade. We have to think about the next century for the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I was even thinking last night that, you know, none of us on this board and none of the current management team may be in place when the actual decisions are made to move forward on something, a project like this. Just remember, it took 30 years from conception to completion on the desal plant, from 1973 until 2003. And there was a lot of concern in the community as I was growing up as to whether the water district could even pay for a desal plant. We had less than 1/10 of the revenues that we have today to finance a more than $40 million project. It took a lot of savings on behalf of the community to actually put together that investment and for the board members and management team to sell it to the public. It wasn't an easy thing. We think of it as something easily completed today, but it took 30 years of hard work. We started looking at recycling, 2 decades ago or more. And it has not shown its feasibility to the community yet. But it doesn't mean that it won't be an option or fill some need in the future. And I think it's incumbent upon this board, this management team, to at least conduct the studies like we did the last one. At least we can present the facts to the community. When people ask about why we perhaps are not doing something or whether we are looking at something in the future, what are our contingency plans? What are our options? And lastly, as I mentioned in our water resources meeting last week, I think it's very important for ACWD to be considered a good citizen among the Bay Area water and sanitary districts, that we are at least willing to look at all the options that are out there. And when we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on other projects like AMI and other projects that we approved in the last board meeting, doing 1 mile of water replacement, main replacement, is $500,000 to $2 million a mile. Here we're spending less than what we would spend on 1 mile of main replacement. And I think this is a good investment. I may not agree with the results later on, but I think we need to complete the study. So those are my thoughts.
Further comments? I think...
We did do a study. We spent a lot of money on it. The result was $5,500 an acre foot. We're now adding to that, saying we've got another, maybe we might find another customer. If we did have another customer in hand, yes, but we don't. So I thought we could put it, it should have been put to bed when we did our last report on this.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Director Gunther, President Gunther. If San Francisco were not participating in this, I would be very reluctant to move forward. But if they're going to become a potential customer of our water, let's take a look at it.
Close up the comments then, and I believe we have a recommendation, and we need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion to move staff recommendation.
I'll second staff recommendation.
A motion and a second. Secretary, please call the roll, please.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
No.
and Gunther.
Aye. On to staff reports.
Staff was not planning on covering anything specifically for items 6.1 or 6.2, but we're available to respond to any questions that the board may have, including, I'm sure, the latest rainfall report, if that's interesting, if there's interest in that.
I'm willing to bypass at this meeting.
Okay.
I know we're over our average.
It's wet.
And once again, would like to point out the hardness report, always buried at the end. However, it's easy to find, and continues to be more than satisfactory. Thank you. Moving on then to
Staff presentations, item 6.3. We have one presentation planned for the board this evening, and that involves an update on our public outreach for the advanced metering infrastructure project and consideration of logo alternatives that will be project specific. I think you'll find this presentation interesting because it's more than just about logo. It's the importance about on such a project that's going to touch essentially all of our customers, an overview of the public outreach aspect of it as well. And for that, Mr. Stevenson will be kicking this item off.
That's right, Mr. Shaver, and staff is looking forward to this presentation, which is a little bit different than many the board sees. So staff will provide a brief update on public outreach planning and activities and share with the board options for a project logo. The intent behind the logo is simply to identify the project in a consistent way across the various ways the project will reach our customers, so door hangers, notices, letterhead, website, decals on contractor vehicles, and so forth. So it's a project identifier. The logo options we'll show the board tonight were developed based in large part on some very helpful and critical feedback that we received at the LICA committee last fall. So the presentation is informational, but we'll show the logo options and seek input with the goal of selecting the board's preferred logo alternative. There'll be no formal vote, but staff is looking for conclusive feedback we can move forward with. So with that, I'll introduce Ben Egger, the AMI project manager, who is supported tonight by members of the project team, including consultant support by EMA and DNA Communications. So Ben, take it away.
All right, thank you. We're on. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board, staff, and members of the public. Yeah, tonight, my name is Ben Egger. Thanks for the introduction, Mr. Stevenson there. Yeah, tonight we'll be looking at an update of the public outreach for the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project. And in December, we took a look at some technical details. We looked at our design, a summary of our design study. Tonight, we're refocusing on our customers, so and our public outreach task. Right. So the purpose of the presentation is to present various logo alternatives and request some board feedback. So what is in the presentation? It's a presentation of the creative process that we used to develop the various alternatives. We'll give some example uses of the project identifier, the logos, and identify the needs that the project has. And then we'll request the board's input on some preferred logo alternative, some conclusive feedback there. What's not in there, we're not planning to roll up our sleeves and do a logo design workshop in the boardroom, but we will present our process that we used. The ACWD staff have not selected or pre-selected any of the logo alternatives, just merely being used as an efficient lens to our customers. Right, so the outline, I'll do a quick introduction and go through our project identifier needs, and then we'll look at the development process for the logo alternatives, and then we'll do the presentation of the logo options that we've put together and some next steps. So co-presenting with me tonight is Maite. She is a senior communications manager with DNA Communications. She's an expert in her field. Certainly we're excited for her to present to you tonight. She has 18 years of experience developing various brand awareness and communication strategies for public, private, and multinational companies. And her team, she led the creative consultant team and did an awesome job. So I'm looking forward to you guys seeing the results of that. Okay, so just continuing with the introduction. The overall, I think we've seen this slide before, but I just wanted to give a quick update on the project timeline. We've moved into phase 2, as you're aware. So we're moving into our proof of concept and procurement phase of the project. And as you can see, we'll be coming back in. We're planning to come back in May for a workshop on our evaluation criteria. But tonight, we're really focusing in on our public outreach task. And that's a task that runs the full duration of the project, which is really in line with this key benefit of AMI. We really want to enhance the customer service and engagement. That's one of the drivers for our project. And so that's why we put so much emphasis on public outreach and customer engagement throughout the AMI project. Here's a quick infographic that D&E put together for us, another piece of their body of work that they've done for us. On the left-hand side is, you may remember this from our open house, the rates open house we did in January. We showed this. I think it was also in the aqueduct last go-around. On the left-hand side, there's an avatar of, this is really a customer-facing vantage point of what AMI is. So it's an avatar of how AMI works, how the technology is connected together. But tonight we're all about public outreach and the customer, and so on the right-hand side you'll see that those are the customer benefits we've tried to identify and put those out there. That benefits like leak alerts, water use efficiency support for our customers, allowing customers to monitor their water usage, and creating that transparency or enhancing that, supporting that transparency between the bill and consumption, as well as all the operational benefits that'll bring to the utility that will enhance our ability for customer service. All right, so yes, Ben, I've heard all this stuff before. There's all these great benefits of AMI, but why do we need a logo? So let's take a quick look at that. Right, so I think you may have seen this map once or twice before. This is our service area, and I'm not sure whether all the little green dots show up, but each green dot is a customer. There's a lot of them. There's 83,000 customers, 83,000 dots up there, and we'll be touching every single one of them on the AMI project. Unfortunately, not all on the one day. We have a 5-year project plan, and so as we go through our public outreach, from the initial public outreach through to the proof of concept, and then moving from the proof of concept into our deployment as we sweep across the service area, there'll be various pieces of material of outreach that will come out from the project, in creating that linkage between the initial public outreach to when someone's in your front yard digging up your meter box and replacing a meter. We want to create that project identifier that helps create that linkage the whole way through the project. And that's really the genesis behind why we're developing a logo. So I guess some public outreach activities such as customer stakeholder meetings and stakeholder meetings, public outreach meetings. We've got a lot of various materials that we're planning, whether it's press releases or social media blasts or bill inserts, the website. I think they say you should say things 7 different ways in 7 different formats to read before you can reach everybody. And then moving into the customer interaction during the construction, and also customer feedback about the experience on the AMI project. So it's just to create a sense of all the public outreach interactions that we're planning, and how this logo is really going to be a tool, that this project identifier is really a tool to help us link it all together. Right, so here's a couple of more graphical examples of the types of outreach. At the top we've got the installer's truck and someone in the front of your house upgrading your meter. There'll be public outreach, open house meetings, door hangers, the website, various infographics and mailers, and this logo will be a way to connect and identify the project to those AMI benefits and the enhanced water services that AMI brings. Right, so with that, I'd like to introduce Maite, and she's going to walk through the development process for our project identifier, and then present the various alternatives. Yeah.
Members of the board, ACWD staff, members of the public, thank you for having us here.
I forgot that I have to talk into this.
I wore heels thinking that this would be enough. Can you hear me? Great. So we've been working with ACWD for about a year and a half. Quick, introduction about my background. I come from a consumer product, lifestyle, and customer service background. And now I've kind of switched into going back to a small agency. And I wanted to share with you that the SFPUC is actually one of my clients. So while I do come from a private sector background, I have a lot of experience with utilities. So wanted to share that so you understand that as we're moving forward with this, we're not only looking at it from the customer service lens and the customer benefit lens, but also from how the new service that is going to evolve from the customers using the technology will benefit from it. So, how did we begin this process? So last year, a first concept was created that was presented to the LICA committee as well as EMA, and feedback and insight was gathered from that. So we continued to move forward with that. In January of this year, again with the feedback that we had acquired from the version 1 concepts, we conducted a design sprint workshop with the ACWD stakeholder team to gather more insight about how the customers and the technology work together and how the customers would benefit. Then one thing that we felt was really important to do is to research what is already out there, both on a national level as well as in California. So we researched other logos, other meter companies, and how they were presenting their representation of the logo. And then here's an example of some of the companies that we researched. The top line specifically focuses on metering companies, and then you'll recognize several companies in there, including one which is my own district, East Bay Mud. They're actually poor design representations of logos. And in my humble opinion, we have an opportunity to create a very unique qualifying logo that will make us stand out, keeping in mind that we're located in Silicon Valley. So it's even more important that we create a relative, contemporary, and identifiable logo that people will look to us as kind of the leaders in this technology and how we're presenting it to the customer. So to continue with the design process, the creative team worked with collecting images and colors that would translate well to logos. And how did they do this? They created an inspiration board. A lot of times people know it as a mood board. Some of you may have used it in your own house if you're designing a kitchen or a bedroom. In the creative world, you actually do a creative board that provides an amalgamation of all these images and concepts. Why did we do it? We wanted to ensure that we were conveying in a visually impactful way the customer benefits. Also, we wanted to help create an overall look and feel for the logos that we're presenting to you today. These are examples of some images that we presented to the team to kind of say, what do you like, what do you dislike? From that, we got to the final inspiration board that our team worked with, and clearly you can see that there is an evolution of colors that were the favorite colors that people liked, evocative images that people seem to identify with, and then most of all, it's about the water and the positive associations that one gets from water. So going back to what does a logo do and what were the design goals with it. First of all, we wanted to ensure the look and feel complemented the parent logo of ACWD. We're not asking to rebrand ACWD. All we're asking to do is put forth something that the customer can identify with the new service that they're getting as a result of the technology. Again, we want to highlight it as a service, part of the water service and provider that ACWD is. And then, most importantly, the benefits that are associated with using the technology. And then be sure to keep an eye on a functional value that's associated with the technology, as well as an emotional value. So how did we go about integrating this? So first and foremost, it was really important that we maintain the integrity of the ACWD service standards. Many customers have been with ACWD for 30 years or more. Nothing is going to change. The only thing that's happening as a result of this is that the service would be enhanced. We wanted to complement the look and feel of the logo, and we wanted to highlight the nature of the service, which is water. Also, we wanted to convey a type of personality to the customer, keeping in mind that, again, we're in the heart of Silicon Valley. It's important to also identify that people are getting more comfortable using technology. And then, for example, with many apps on your phone, which this could be considered a type of application, there's a type of comfort and personality associated with it. What did we want to continue to do? We wanted to ensure that we were integrating a customer benefit into the value proposition. So the next step was creating a tagline or a value proposition that was identifiable and compatible with the logo. Why did we do that? We wanted to ensure that the metering value, the advanced metering value, was highlighted to the customer in a thoughtful way. We also wanted to ensure that the benefits were highlighted in a purposeful way through the logo. And then in the event that there was a bit of a transition or discomfort with something new coming as a result of the service through ACWD, we wanted to help create a seamless and way that the customers would identify with this. So now we're at where we got to today. The next step is we're going to present to you the logo options. So there'll be 2 logo options with 2 taglines, and they're passing them out to you now. Okay, so what many of you will have, you have 4 logos in front of you, so there are options 1A through 2B, 2 logos, and 2 value proposition statement. If you look at icon style option 1A, advanced metering, more than a water connection, what we've done here is kind of a traditional icon logo with the tagline underneath it. More than a water connection. So the goal here was to create an image that was recognizable with the water droplet. And if you paid attention to some of the other logos, it's a very common theme that a lot of districts and metering companies use, which is the water droplet, which is identifiable. You'll see that we tried to mimic the waves or the arches in the ACWD logo by having them follow the same direction in the water droplet here. And then we showed 2 different sizes for scale, so you can see what it looks like in a larger way, and then in a smaller way, should it be in a print form or on a website. So in keeping with what I introduced at the beginning, that we wanted to ensure that we were complementing the look and feel of the ACWD logo, we wanted to put them side by side so you could see that we weren't trying to detract or take away from the ACWD logo, but highlight it and ensure that the look and feel was maintained and the brand standards weren't compromised in any way. So the next tagline, it's the same logo, Wise Water Solutions. So with both taglines, the goal is to ensure that people understand that when they're using the technology, it's establishing a connection and an understanding in a way in how they interact with the water every day. So they control the type of information that they're trying to extract and or learn. So if you look at insignia style logo tagline option 2A, you've got 2A and 2B in front of you. We went to a more traditional insignia style here. This is a little more relevant to kind of equating it to the old style water meter. We did this because this is going to be new for some people, so we wanted the transition and the recognition to be linking the new to the old. Also, if you see the movement in the water, yes, it does illustrate water and its movement, its fluidity, but we also wanted it to be a way to illustrate that it's something that measures and gives you information. And again, with the tagline, more than a water connection. Illustrating that it's not connecting you just to the water, it's giving you various amounts of information that you can utilize. And then an example of the logo next to the parent logo to illustrate that we weren't changing anything, but merely putting something that complemented the original parent logo in the event that they get used side by side. Same logo with the second tagline, Wise Water Solutions, a little bit of a more wittier tagline that conveys that the solutions are for the customer to create as they need them. So it's merely the technology is a vehicle for them to utilize in how they want to interact with their water usage every day. And once again, with this, we want to ensure that, you know, we're not changing, we're not rebranding, we're not taking away from anything that's already established and recognizable from the logo. So we wanted to show it to you with the logo options side by side. So right now, we'll just open it up to questions and feedback.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Maite. Yeah. Right. So what we saw. So this is the final slide. We'll leave this here for your deliberation. But what we presented was two logos, two value propositions. And so my ask for tonight, as you consider the various, what was presented, if we could, certainly we're opening the floor for questions about the creative process behind the development of the logos. And then if we could solicit some conclusive feedback about the preferred alternatives, we'd certainly be interested in receiving that feedback.
President Gunther, do you mind if I kick things off?
You're very welcome to kick things off.
I think it was you and I in the LICA committee that reviewed this?
Might have been.
Right, okay. So,
maybe a different committee, but I remember your comments.
So, let me share with the board and the staff that, and with some apology too, I kind of harangued the staff team when you were originally presenting concepts for AMI and the logo and everything. And the reason is because I've spent my career in product management, coming up the corporate ladder in Silicon Valley. And I've gone through many and extensive product namings, company namings, nomenclature for all kinds of products and the logos, the slogans that go along with that. And I am extremely delighted to see that you laid out the exact procedures that I was talking about in the meeting, our committee meeting, about what is the standard procedure for going through naming of important products or services. And so I see that you really diligently went through what I was thinking about. I appreciate that, because this is how most good agencies, companies try to arrive at what will sell effectively to their consumers, their audience, whatever it might be. And I've always thought it's really important in naming anything that you connect the the name, the logo, the slogan, with the benefits of what you're trying to convey to the ultimate buyer or consumer. And I think you brought that to the table here tonight. I've expressed in previous meetings that I have some hesitation about using advanced metering infrastructure, those three words, when I don't think anybody in the public really understands what it is. So, off the top of my head, I offered up the idea of just simply smart metering. Dropping out the word infrastructure here, I think, is very important. Whether it's advanced metering or smart metering, you know, it's debatable. I tend to go with what you have on the latter side of the board here with wise water solutions or even smart water solutions. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head again that sometimes you have two alliterative words in a row, like wise water, which is hard on people. Maybe it's better if it's smart water solutions. I'm not sure. It has to be consumer tested. You know, maybe a focus group or something like that. Another comment is that when maybe you can pull it back up, the chart where you had all the comparisons of what other people are doing. This is something that's commonly done when you are picking out a product name or a logo, because you want to, in the corporate world, you want to trademark, copyright trademark, register trademark what you're doing, and you don't want to have something that is evidently similar to what other water agencies are doing. In the last 4 years, I think we've seen the overuse of the water droplet or the teardrop, even with the adoption of that in the Aqua logo. I'm kind of tired of it myself. I don't have a better solution to offer tonight here, but I wonder if your inspiration team might take a look at some other options. It just seems like the water droplet is way overused. Maybe that's my perception because we here in the district and as board members, we're intimately involved with the industry. Our customers are not, so maybe it might be the first time that they see something like this, and you know, it might make a easily identifiable connection, you know, with the water district. So I don't want to dismiss that either. The wavy thing is also been adopted kind of everywhere you see it, you know, the waves. I do like the concept that you mentioned about measurement, because that's really an important part of what we're trying to offer our customers. And you mentioned making a Silicon Valley connection. I'm not sure what that is in the final rendition of what you came up with.
Is that a question? Do you want me to comment or?
Yeah, and the colors, you know, everything's evolving in the industry around the same set of colors too. So if there were a greater high-tech Silicon Valley connection, it's something I would entertain. So those are just some preliminary thoughts. But I really do appreciate the fact that you went through the exercise that I was talking about in the committee meeting, that this is the way that is the normal practice in industry. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm listening. Right? No, I'm always listening. Yeah, no, your feedback, yeah, Director Sethy and Director Gunther at the LICA committee was definitely, yeah, very insightful. So, yeah, we rolled that feedback into our process for sure. Right, Maite, I don't know whether you want to talk about
Sure. So one thing, whenever you're doing logo presentations, as you know, it's really important that there's something that's easily identifiable and comfortable, and then something that's a little bit of a transition. This is a smaller population that this metering technology is serving. Our team was really looking at the longevity of accounts that exist, and there are several accounts that exist over 30 years. So to make an assumption that everybody is technology savvy and already oriented was not an assumption we wanted to make, but at the same time, my parents who are in their 70s, they're quite tech savvy, and they possibly could have been one of the people that have accounts that are over 30 years old. So I also don't want to diminish that just because somebody is an existing account holder that they are not comfortable with technology. One of the things is that this is very similar to an app. Most people have an app on their phone, and so you can look at the advanced metering technology as something that they can use like an app. They can figure out, how much water they're using on a daily basis. If they want to figure out on a monthly basis that perhaps they're spending, I'm making this up, $100 a month over, they can use this technology to figure out over a year how much water they can use so that they can keep the rates where they want them. And if there's anything else going on that might, guests coming into town, et cetera, they can look at the technology and understand, well, I have a month out of the year where, I've got 7 guests in my house, so that's going to skew everything off, so I may want to put aside money for that month. These are just examples, but it was the fact that, again, we are in Silicon Valley. Most people are moving to using technology in different forms, whether it's on their phones or even through their utility districts. So again, it was important to us that just because there's everybody's in the population. So both of these logos are really meant to be comfortable and accessible for those who are very savvy and those who may not be so savvy, but maybe have an inclination to kind of go, oh, well, how can I use this to make my life easier in the way that I work with water? So our team felt that this logo is a little more non-traditional. Again, the movement in the waves is obviously to illustrate that it's water because this is a water service. I don't think that should be diminished. We introduced the color green into this logo because using the technology will also help in terms of your personal conservation and efficiency with water. So the color greens, and unfortunately these projections are not great and your printouts aren't great. So maybe in hindsight we should have presented with our own printer that shows the colors how they really represent. But the green in this logo is to really show that this is part of green and conservation and what people potentially could do with the technology. So there we kind of stayed away with that. The second thing is going back to my point about not detracting from ACWD and the recognition that it has, is to go completely away from the color palette is disrespectful to the parent logo and disrespectful to ACWD, because our task at hand was not to rebrand ACWD. Our task was to create a logo that would be accessible and comfortable for the ACWD customers. So we wanted to respect that and respect the service standards that ACWD has already established in this community.
Can I ask a question? And I'm not trying to question the intelligence of your team or anything, but did you debate at all whether you should call it smart metering or advanced metering? Because when I think of advanced metering, I think of it as from the perspective of the company or the agency, the one that is originating the product or the service. But if I'm trying to say smart metering, it's communicating to the customer part of what the benefit is. Advanced means it's advanced for us. Smart means it's smart for the customer.
So Great point. I agree with you 100%. I don't want to misspeak to this, but if you do research on smart metering, and I may have to have Mark talk about this, but smart metering, actually, if you pull it up, the number one association with it is fire.
Fire.
Yeah.
With smart metering, it's been around for a while, right? I mean, this comes through the electricity industry. And I think there's probably a reason they used it, because it does work well. But there is some history there with smart metering deployments that haven't been, we're on the start of the technology, and I think
they caught fire, basically, is what happened. They started
Yeah,
fires.
if you Google smart metering, it's not, it may not be. That's why I guess we moved away from that.
And in fact,
tagline.
to your point, it actually was one of the taglines that I proposed, and I got kiboshed immediately for that exact reason. I was just like, oh, and then I had done different incarnations of it, but when you do it like that, which most people, when they're researching something, as they should, if they got a flyer or saw something, if they happen to walk in and see the emblem and go, oh, smart metering, go home, all I can remember is smart metering. They do a little Google search, and then it comes up, and they're like, wait, they're putting something in my front yard that's going to catch fire? So, to your point, it's valid. Obviously, we're going to do whatever we're instructed to do.
No,
something to think about.
I'm not pushing an idea. I was just asking whether you looked at the choices, so I'm glad you did. No, I'm learning here at the same time.
Yeah, we could have presented everything, and we probably would have gone on till 2 a.m. this morning.
No, it's certainly a good question. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So Director Sethy, I've scratched out a little scorecard here in my binder, and so I just want to let you know right now I have you in the 2B column. Is that about right? 2B is the insignia style with the Wise Water Solutions, possibly considering smart water.
Yeah, 1B or 2B. I think I prefer 2B.
Okay, that's helpful.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much for going through what I consider a industry standard iterative process of evaluating, where we should be.
Thanks for the opportunity to walk you through it.
Okay. Dr. Gunther, how do you wish to proceed?
Director Weedy, go ahead.
My first concern is that the logo should stand alone, and someone should look at it and realize whose it is. So the letters of ACWD with its logo being incorporated in the I think is better. I prefer the drop because when I see a pipe with something in it, I think of another type of water system. The word smart, I would give you some pushback on because the great members of the public think of gas and electric meters as being smart. They already have 2 smart meters in their house. When they see a smart water meter, they'll immediately understand and relate to that, not this other issue. So smart in lieu of the word wise. So I would be 1A with the initials ACWD, with the ACWD logo being incorporated with the advanced metering.
Can I just say something to your point? One of the things that the reason why we designed them like this is whenever you design a logo, you can't always put a tagline with it. To your point, it may be important to put ACWD or Alameda County Water District on it. So this is meant to, if you don't want to put the tagline with it, we can drop in Alameda County Water District or ACWD underneath it.
Let's see, maybe I'm on the wrong, or if I said 1A or 1B. The one I'm thinking about is the one that says advanced metering and text, a line, not the circle.
Is this the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the ACWD above advanced metering, and then substitute the word wise with smart.
So you would want, if we put it all together,
I think you should be able to look at a logo and find out who, and have an understanding of whose it is, and since it's ours,
right.
And that I think the word smart gives the impression to the public that it's a third intelligent meter on their property.
Okay.
The other
yeah,
two are smart
great.
meters. This will be another smart meter.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Just a quick thought here. You know, we have all of our vehicles that go around the community are our best advertising, you know, for the water district in some ways. And you could easily put whatever the logo is on the side right on the vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
There's lots of ways to adapt it to the current ACWD.
And that was the intent. And also the thinking behind this is we're going to have more than likely a contractor doing the meter retrofit. So they'll be in front of every home. So there's an opportunity to put the smart metering or advanced metering logo next to the contractor's logo.
Yeah.
So there's a connection there, but if there's an issue, it's with the contractor too. So there's a way to manage this to make sure that people, you know, don't shoot at the contractor that's messing with their water meter. Yet it gives us some flexibility on how to put this together.
Yeah, and one other comment for the team here. I'm on the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority. There's also a Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority, and we just went through the logo and branding for that. These are two new state agencies in the last year for the Delta pipeline or pipelines. So you might want to look that up. It's dcdca.org. And you can, we came up with similar colors and themes.
Okay. And if I could just quick note that this is not well, you'll still have an advertising campaign. The primary interface with people with this technology will be a cell phone. So the utilization of cell phones in your brochures or however it might work, I think is an important element that people can understand how they're going to read their meter. And then other advances will come along. And on just a side note, I had a tenant who took his name off of every vehicle he could because they were contractors, and they found that it was easy to get sued when people saw them on a job site. So the smarter contractors do not put the name of their business on the side of their vehicles if they're going out in the public and dealing in the real world. Thank you.
So, personally, I prefer the water droplet logo. I think I'm leaning more to 1A. I kind of like the tagline more than a water connection there. I think it, to me, it kind of says a little bit more on the entire scope of the project. I do personally agree that I would prefer calling it smart metering personally, and the reason that I think that is because I think to the consumer it kind of fits into where the world is moving with your smartphone, your smart watch. Now you have your smart home, so your smart meter kind of says a little bit more about the technology that's being integrated into their water meter. So I think it would be nice to call it smart metering, but if that is going to be kind of a PR issue or something like that, then maybe including the word smart somewhere in the tagline, like Director Sethy mentioned, would be a good idea.
Okay, yeah, great feedback. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to be the person out. So my question is, I actually, the statement is that I actually don't agree we need to have a logo. The question for staff is, how much money have we spent so far to develop this logo?
Right.
Any idea?
Yeah, great question. So the logo development is part of the greater public outreach task, which is a pretty key component of the overall AMI initiative. We certainly didn't want to undersell our public outreach. work in developing the connection between customer benefits and AMI technology. And so the overall task for public outreach, where we developed a public outreach plan, various FAQs, key messaging, infographics, work on various press releases, and the logo, I think in total that line item was $78,000 in the initial out of the original 1.1.
So Ben, I definitely recognize we need to have a very robust outreach plan for this project because it is something very different. It is more questioning, do we specifically need this particular line item? So with that said, that's kind of bring it back after the cost. So how is this logo going to be used? You are asking us to look at something visually, but give me some context. How is this going to be used? Is it going to be on the side of the car? Is it going to be on a website? Is this going to be a button on your smartphone? Those will lead to a slightly different decision.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think we want it to be a consistent identifier throughout the project. So every piece of collateral for public outreach that we develop will have the tagline and the logo, and most likely the ACWD logo, the parent logo next to it. And that would live right throughout the project, and creating that connection between all our public outreach initially, the contractor being in the front yard, digging out, replacing the meter. We would certainly want the customer to see that contractor there, and it'll probably have the contractor's name on their vehicle and on their uniform, probably on their ID badge. But then also have the project identifier so that people realize, oh, that is my AMI upgrade that you told me was coming in 2 weeks. Here they are. I recognize the logo. It creates that linkage back to everything you've told me about AMI to date. And right, and then are we going to use it on the app icon? I don't know at this point in time, but we could if you'd like.
No, that's fine. I just need a little bit more context. So
sure, yeah.
Here's the point. The logo as presented right now does not have Alameda County Water District. If you put the two logos side by side like you have on the screen, my guess is our customer's first question is there a separate company that's doing this? So you will be having issues with identifying that logo with an entity versus a project. And that might be a little bit difficulties in terms of how this is presented. That's why I do agree with Director Wee that somewhere in there ACWD needs to come back in.
Right.
All right. So keep that in mind, and I could tell you visually which one I prefer. I do have some problem with the wording in terms of if you look at it from the customer's point of view. What does Wise Water Solution means to you? And what is the nexus to that smart AMI? So things like smart water connection, smart water solution would probably ring more a bell for our customers because Wise Water Solution could be a lot of different things. So I would suggest you think a little bit more from the customer's point of view. I think so far we looked at it from a higher how this would appeal, how this fit within the industry, but focus it a little bit on our customers. You know, they look at this logo. What type of emotion does it bring out to them? What does it mean to them? If you really want to go down to this path of having a logo, change your thought a little bit because after all, they are our customer. They're the one that we're trying to convince, right? So just keep that in mind a little bit. Just make sure that it is understood as our project and is a project. If not, we're going to have people calling us saying, oh, hey, do you have another company? Is like your insurance plan that you have a third party that you're getting benefits from? So just be very clear where we are. In terms of visually, I actually prefer 1B just because the tagline is kind of shift to the right. To me, that's tidier, but I don't like the Wise Water Solution tagline at all because it doesn't ring a bell for me as a customer. So I would suggest that maybe you rethink your tagline a little bit. You got some really good recommendations from the board, and I would encourage you to think about it really, what does it mean to a customer? Not how it looks like, how it jives with everything else, but what does it mean to our customer who is just looking at the logo? It needs to be something that visually identifies us because it's our project. It identifies the project and perhaps signify a benefit to our customers from this project.
Right. So I think what I heard is certainly the ACWD logo needs to be very prominent with the AMI logo if it's used. But your preference was for 1B, but to take a look at the tagline there.
Yeah, change.
I just wanted to build on your comment real quick.
Okay, by all means.
Whether it was 1B or 2B, I agree with Director Huang. I think with Director Weed too. If it were Smart Water Solutions, I think that, and Director Akbari was saying the same thing. I feel more comfortable with that, despite the concerns that you brought up from your team. There's something, I'm just reflecting back on some other wording for some other projects I've worked on, whether it was wise or some synonym to that. It can actually be a little bit insulting to the person on the receiving side of the audience that if you're not of the elite, you're out of the crowd or something. It implies something that is kind of subconscious, and so you might want to look at the use of that word in other product realms. To me, wise is very suggestive of something that I might not be if I'm a consumer. That kind of undercuts your theme, but smart is wanting to become something better. So,
I certainly recognize that's a common theme. From the comments we received, and I think it's a good one. Smart Water Solutions. We'll take a look at that.
I think it rolls off the tongue better too.
Right.
I did a quick Google search on smart meters. Yes, we don't want to go there. I think it was number 4 on my phone and number 5 on Google were not pleasant. So I think the concept of putting smart and meter together, no. Doesn't work. We don't want that.
It's a good argument for not doing the project at all.
I'm good with it. Smart water, I liked it. However, I also did a Google search on smart water, and we may have some issues with the bottling company, Smart Water.
Oh, right.
That could be a problem.
Smart Water.
I mean, I like Smart Water more than Water Wise. I kind of prefer 2B. One thing I've always hated about logos is, you see a logo that it's so crowded, you can't read it. It goes back to campaign signs. There's all this garbage on it, and you have no idea what you're looking at. However, I agree with Director Weed that definitely we need to have somewhere ACWD. Otherwise, I agree. Customers are going to be out there. They're going to look at these guys. What are they doing? Stealing brass? It's
and that's the very thing we're trying to...
we want to avoid that. And the other thing is, this is, we're not trying to take away the ACWD. We're trying to promote the ACWD.
Right.
I like the Smart Water. I'm not sure how Smart Water would feel about that. They may not care. It's just a project name. Definitely not Smart Meter. I just think, we'll wave over here, if these are advanced meters, not smart meters, because we're going to have our share, I guarantee it. I saw the next door stuff. I was in the committee meeting with Director Sethy, and fascinating, by the way. That was a great committee meeting. But next door, when Hayward did this, was also quite fascinating.
Right.
What came out of that. So we've got our work cut out, and when these trucks get out there, I think we definitely have to have ACWD on it. I'm okay. I could go along with 2B. I could go along with 1B. I like smart water if we don't think it's going to get us sued. By the time they figure out we're using it, we'll be out of there.
We're not copywriting anything or trying to make a profit in the marketplace.
Right.
So anyway,
You want to copyright this?
I guess that's what I got to say. I'm not a big logo guy. I like them. I don't ask me to develop one.
But your input is very useful. Any feedback
be able
there.
to read it.
And Smart Water is certainly is a company that's out there making bottled water. But I understand we want to create the sense that, and this is what we've been trying to create all along, that we're not doing this to the customer. This is a project that has a huge amount of benefit to the customers and our ability to offer a brand new set of services. So, that's what we're trying to capture.
Since you worked with San Francisco, and they, I think, were the first in the Bay Area to implement AMI, what did they do in terms of...
So I did not work on that project.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have insight onto, what they did. We'd have to pull it up. I probably should have done a little drill on that, but I'm working on some other projects with them.
Because they had a very successful rollout.
Oh yeah, if you read about how it's been received, both in the city and the county and by customers, it's great. Everybody loves to interact with it. But I think what your question is, what does it look like? How did they introduce it to the customers? I can't give you that information right now. I'm happy to give you that stuff at another time. I just don't have that insight right now.
Mm-hmm. It was the city of Modesto or Merced that did the recent rollout. Modesto?
Merced, I believe.
Merced, yeah. Of about 100,000 or something?
I think it was short of 100,000.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think it was more in the 30,000 range.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Right. Do we have any knowledge of what they did on there?
Yeah, a lot of districts have taken various approaches to their AMI rollout. Our approach is to be pretty upfront and to recognize all the benefits both to the utility and to the customer, and use that as the driver for our project, as opposed to hey, we have to do a meter replacement program anyway, so let's just tack on AMI. Or let's try to fly AMI under the radar to save in various areas, and then tell people about the benefits after we have it. I think we're being pretty transparent, pretty upfront, and we're trying to tell everybody that we're coming. And so I would say that what I know of the Merced deployment is they did it mostly in-house. And I don't know that they have stressed the public and customer benefit as much as we're trying to.
The city of San Diego has rushed out AMI without, because they were responding to some other issues at the same time and thought AMI would be part of the solution, and it hasn't been that great. I think what we're proposing is something definitely more methodical and more careful. So just stepping in here for a second, has been great feedback to the project team, I'm sure, from the directors here. You've given the project team some really good ideas, but as usual, they're different. In the beauty contest, we appear to have somewhat of a tie for tie between three of the logos here, and three of the approaches. So the big question for the board, because I also did hear about concern about cost and level of effort associated with this, is how comfortable are you allowing staff and our consultant to go back and incorporate the suggestions that we had into something, but not necessarily having another sort of beauty contest again? Would you be comfortable basically empowering us to come back and then incorporate your feedback into something, realizing that it might not be exactly what every one of you would perfectly love, but would reflect sort of the overall input that we received this evening? So, because it's just an hour at a board meeting, and I think my sense, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're kind of in the ballpark here. We're a lot closer than we were at the LICA committee, and
that's for sure.
So that's the question.
So I'll start. Since I'm the one that's concerned about cost, you don't need to come back. I think staff heard our concern, so I actually do not need to see it again. And by the way, I look up San Francisco's. They call them automated water meter instead of automated water meter instead of
sounds
advanced.
Like Arigato, Mr. Roboto.
A little robotic.
They wouldn't be called automated.
So yeah, they do actually have a web page dedicated to it.
They do,
and
yeah.
Okay, just to slide this in, they do not have a logo on that page.
I agree with Director Huang, as long as he went with 1B or 2B and used water solutions.
No pressure.
With the logo in there. But yeah, a logo is part of a marketing approach, and it'd be interesting to see some sketches and ideas of how you're going to, what a brochure might look like, because this is just a small portion of the bigger issue and the bigger program.
I'm fine empowering staff to finalize the decision on the logo.
I'm also fine with empowering staff. However, if staff decides to use the word smart meter, whoever makes that decision, I think they need to answer the phone and the email. So,
how about a smart solution?
Don't think we want to do that.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I'm good.
Okay, so what I heard is not necessarily use smart meter, but somehow get the word smart into this logo in a way that either doesn't get us sued or doesn't get us mixed up with some other smart initiative that has nothing to do with us. Does that make sense?
Smart H2O solutions.
There's got to be somebody that is using that somewhere.
Or smart water, not water smart.
Okay, so it's interesting, the more than a water connection doesn't appear to have received much traction. Which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why
That's why we're...
which is why we give choices. I will ask the project manager and the department head, do you feel that you received the input that you need this evening, or is there anything else?
Yeah, we really appreciate your time and your consideration. It was, very informative. So, yeah, we'll certainly incorporate and respect all that feedback and, and move forward.
I guess we were your impromptu focus group tonight, right?
Yes, we appreciate it. It was nice to see the creative wheels turning. And so this is good feedback, and we can definitely make something of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on. I think, do we have any more?
Or a couple of board reports.
Yes, we do have a few very, very brief general manager report items, two of which are on your agenda, and there's a few more after that. So the board did receive an informational email about the term of the special district member on the Alameda County Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO. That term expires on May 6th. So therefore, Alameda LAFCO, in conjunction with Special Districts Association, is calling a meeting of the Alameda County Independent Special District Selection Committee, which is the entity that essentially appoints the LAFCO positions. So that meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 8th, 2019, at 10 a.m. After the regular ASCSDA meeting, which is, I believe, during the week of the Aqua Conference. In a perfect world, President Gunther, as ACWD Board President, would be the district's designated representative to vote. The incumbent, Ann Weiskamp from East Bay Regional Park District, is seeking re-election. I am not aware at this time of any other people seeking that position. So I think we're not going to be in a position where that meeting is actually going to happen, is my guess. If Ms. Weiskamp continues to run essentially unopposed, they will cancel the meeting. However, if there is going to be sort of an election that has a couple of candidates in it, the statute requires board action to designate somebody else to vote on ACWD's behalf. So what we would do is then we'd put an item on the May 2nd board meeting. So we can do that in advance, and then that will allow us to have flexibility. The alternative is just to let the other members of the other special district members vote, and assuming they have a quorum, they would just select that entity. So I think we have maximum flexibility if we see what happens, and then I will continue to work with the board president in terms of whether or not it's important for us to have representation, and then bother you as the rest of the board as little as possible. Does that sound fair? Okay. The second item is regarding Rubberdam number 1 public outreach that we wanted to make sure the board was aware of, and Mr. Stevenson will provide a brief update.
Indeed, and on the screen you can see a map that shows, well, maybe you can see it. So this shows a couple of locations where staff is planning some public information tent events. So as you know, the second larger fish ladder project will begin construction shortly. It looks like the contractor will be mobilizing in May. And we've got information starting to go out to the community about the construction activities and what to expect and so forth. And so we're going to be holding 2 separate public information tent events, very similar to what we had done for the Rubberdam number 3 project last year. And at these events, staff will be present to share with the neighbors and stakeholders information about the project and upcoming construction activities. Staff will be present, the construction contractor will be there, along with the construction management firm, a representative from the construction management firm. And each of these events will be held between 4 and 6 p.m. One of them, the first one, will be April 23rd, and that will be at Rancho Arroyo Park. So that's the one on sort of the upper left. So April 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. And then we'll have another one down on the trail right near where the construction site will be. That's what's shown on the lower left, or sort of middle left. That will be on April 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. To capture the various folks going along the trail, where we had a reasonable turnout last time with the Rubberdam number 3 tent event. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. You're of course welcome to drop by. Generally we'll have some water there and maybe a cookie or 2 and an opportunity to talk with folks who are interested in the project. Any questions on that?
And if the board would like, we'll go ahead and send out invitations. So if you're available, it'll be on your Outlook calendar. Okay. The next item is actually really good financial-related news that will be shared by Mr. Wunderlich.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shaver. Moody's Investor Service does an annual surveillance of the district as one of the entities it rates. And so they contacted me about a month ago to initiate the annual surveillance for this year. As a part of that process, the district requested an upgrade to our credit rating. And Moody's informed us today that they have upgraded our credit rating from AA2 to AA1. So that's now the second highest rating issued by them. Some of the factors that they really considered in that process that were the biggest ones were our healthy debt service coverage ratio, as well as the liquidity of our cash reserves. But when Moody's does this type of analysis, it's really based on your overall operational capacity, the overall quality of your planning. So my colleagues who are sitting up here with me were also a big role in that in providing the information they requested about our capital plan, water reserves, and production capacity, because they really want to know that you're set up to sustainably serve your community, not just today but into the future. And so we just found that out today, and we're excited to see that they've recognized the steps the district has taken to really prudently manage our operations.
Do I read that correctly? Is that the equivalent of the AAA with Standard & Poor's? Or?
Well, we were already AAA with Standard & Poor's.
I know, but is this one, this is not a step down, this is their top rating?
No, Moody's has a AAA rating.
Okay.
But it's probably impractical for us to try to collect that much money from our customers to really qualify for their AAA rating. So this is realistically probably the top of the line that we would look at getting for Moody's.
So we're one step down on Moody's.
Yeah, so Moody's goes AAA, then AA1, then AA2, then AA3, and so we moved up from AA2 to AA1.
It's great news. It's hard to obtain even that rating.
My understanding is there are fewer than 10 water districts in California with that quality of rating.
Okay.
Congratulations.
One sec. So have another item. Just wanted to make the board aware that I believe it was Director Sethy who may have asked about our District of Distinction Platinum level logo on our website. It's on our website now.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to scroll down to get to it a little bit, but it is there.
Okay.
So that is now on our list. That logo, speaking of logos, the theme of the evening, that's on our website. Two other quick items. Laura Heides is going to talk a little bit about public outreach, specifically by the state water contractors. And there's a handout to share with that.
Thanks. So tonight we're passing out copies of two different fact sheets that have been developed by the state water contractors that might be of use to you as issues come up, and you might want to use it to discuss with folks. One addresses the use of the state water project and the value of it to the San Francisco Bay Area, sometimes not known in our area. And then the other covers the State Water Resources Control Board's Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan update and the voluntary settlement agreements that have been proposed as an alternative to the State Board's regulatory approach to the Bay Delta Plan update. So we're sharing those with you today, and you're welcome to use them as you wish.
And the last item is our manager of operations and maintenance. His last scheduled day at the district will be on May 2nd. That's also his retirement date, and happens to coincide with a board meeting. So the board will have an opportunity to thank Steve at the board meeting, as well as we're going to have a little recognition event for staff that same day, I believe at 1:30. Is that right, Mike?
Yes.
Here, and I understand the planning committee for that little event has had its first meeting today. So we'll try to send Steve off into the sunset in our customary way with the appropriate level of recognition as well as humor. So with that, that's all I had for general manager reports. We're up to the director's comments item.
Director's comments. I know we have a couple reports from Director Sethy.
Let me take care of mine first, and I'll turn it over to Director Weed. So the first is the Aqua Management Committee meeting, which I sit on, and we had our meeting on March 18th. I don't want to go through the entire agenda because it was a few hours, but as usual, we covered every aspect of water in the state of California for all 10 hydrological regions. I decided to pass out this one 2018 snapshot from California Water Efficiency Partnership, which got off the ground just last year. They made a wonderful presentation on all of the activities they've been involved with and publications they've put out. This is actually a very remarkable effort for the water industry to initiate something brand new and bring it all together like this. Now, Mr. Shaver knows the history behind this. This actually was in a different form as a group and reorganized. But there are a lot of very valuable publications and things you might want to check out the website, and extremely educational things that are available. To highlight just a couple things, because I don't want to go through the entire agenda, but we did have a good presentation on the California Water Plan 2018 update. It is yet to be finalized. It was expected out in the first quarter. Look for it pretty soon. This will be the first major update to the California Water Plan in several years. From what they were presenting, they are putting it into a more condensed version rather than a big thick book. We're going to have something that's more readable for the public and the average layperson out there, so that should be helpful. We had some very good presentations on brackish water desal, mostly in the interior of the state, and also on recycled water and direct potable water reuse for communities that are in-state that really need to clean up their groundwater, make it serviceable for the community. So those were interesting. Lots of discussion on the agricultural water use efficiency things going on in the state, but that are not really pertinent to our district. And of course, we had a vigorous discussion on the potential for a water tax. So those are all items covered. Number two, there was an Aqua-promoted conference that Aqua put out an email blast on. I decided to go attend this. It was on the California Asset Management Program, CAMP, and of course we put in tens of millions of dollars into CAMP and LAIF, and this was an excellent presentation. I met with Mr. Wunderlich afterward to share my thoughts on it and gave a copy to both Director Weed and Mr. Wunderlich. If anybody wants to go through this, I have another copy available. It was presented by PFM Asset Management, which of course manages our portfolio of investments. They do not directly manage our CAMP investments, but they are also the asset managers portfolio managers for camp, which I didn't realize. So we had presentations from the chair of the Board of Trustees of camp and PFM representatives. They went over all the changes in state law over the last 4 years, common misconceptions when applying the code to public agency investments, identified different investment policy best practices, and I have to tell you, like I shared with Mr. Wunderlich, I learned a tremendous amount in this quick seminar on what camp is. It's always been kind of mysterious to me how we use how we invest in camp versus LAIF and what the trade-offs are, when it's most practical to have money in camp, when it's more practical to have it in the state LAIF fund. And so it brought a lot of clarity to my mind. And I have asked Mr. Wunderlich if he would actually bring to the Finance Committee a review of how our finance staff makes the choices between where we put our monies in these two accounts, because it does represent tens of millions of dollars every year for us.
Director Sethy, we have tentatively planned that for the May Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, great. And I have to say, if it gets communicated back to PFM, I certainly will say it. They put on just an excellent presentation. It was really, really good. And I was the only board member there from a water district. Most of the people there were finance managers, worked in finance department, and it was a cross-section of not only water districts, sanitary, county agencies, all kinds of districts that invest in camp. So, really very good. Lastly, I attended the Alameda County Special Districts Association meeting and dinner. All I can say, it was just routine business and a nice dinner. That was it.
Thank you. On my report, the Water Now Alliance, this is a San Francisco-based organization with enjoys funding from the Walton Foundation, and I was able to, and currently among their employees is our former general manager, Walt Wadlow. And they've had their 4th annual meeting. They have them on university campuses. It has a very strong tie with the National League of Cities. Gives a national perspective. Stormwater runoff. Felicia Marcus is one of the keynote speakers. So there was a heavy California focus on many of the presentations. They're working strongly on trying to get tax exemptions for water conservation, which they will continue to push. Mr. Hovington, who is the author of that bill, had a teleconference to the group expressing his support. And it's good to talk water for 3 days. So, as someone pointed out, if you're a true fanatic is someone who cannot change his cannot change his mind and will not change the subject.
You're the definition of it.
Thank you. Under board comments, I did have for the May special meetings. I'd like to make sure we have that squared away.
Okay, just one quick thing. It's come up where there was a question about what staff routinely puts down in terms of meetings attended on the agenda. So the board rules require directors to report out on meetings attended in which they are requesting expense reimbursement. So typically those are the only meetings that we actually put on the agenda to aid you in your reporting requirements. That doesn't mean that you can't report on meetings in which you did not have any expenses, but that's been our practice. Or when we're in doubt, we also tend to put them down.
Okay. And a quick note, I hope to attend tomorrow the groundbreaking in Zone 7 for the Patterson treatment facility. I hope to be able to break free in time from another commitment to make it there.
And I understand that you will be attending that meeting representing the district on behalf of the board president, which is
Thank you.
I have one quick notice in case other people didn't see it. San Francisco is having a completion ceremony up at Calaveras Reservoir.
May 3rd.
May 3rd, 9 to 12, or 9 to 1:30, something like that, 9 to 1:30.
correct. And according to Mr. Ritchie, almost everybody on the planet is invited.
They are. Okay.
So I think that's
It's reversal.
something that definitely you can attend if you'd like. If you need information on it, let me know and I'll shoot you that. How about agenda item requests or something?
Yeah, agenda item request,
Future board
any
meeting.
future comments?
No?
Hearing none.
Closed
we'll
session.
Move on. We have a closed session this evening. 2 closed sessions. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session.
Correct. We're going to go into closed session at 8:17 p.m. for 2 items. 8.1 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators include Robert Shaver, Jennifer Solito, and Glenn Berkheimer. The employee organization is ACWD Operators Association. And the second closed session, item 8.2, is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. The agency designated negotiators are Robert Shaver and Jennifer Solito, and the unrepresented employees are the management confidential professional employees. We're now going to convene to closed session.
Did you get your copy?
Hey,
Reconstruction era.
everybody, we got everybody.
We got everybody.
Picture.
The parallels.
I'll reopen the meeting.
Okay, the board's reconvening back in open session at 8:40 p.m. And the board had convened in closed session for 2 items. Item 8.1, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators Robert Shaver, Jennifer Solito, and Glenn Berkheimer. Employee organization ACWD Operators Association. And in the closed session, board reviewed the terms and condition of the proposed successor MOU, which will be considered under action item 9.1. For item 8.2, closed session 8.2, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators Robert Shaver and Jennifer Solito. Unrepresented employees, management confidential and professional employees. And in that closed session, direction was given to the labor negotiators. And that concludes the closed session reports.
So regarding item 9.1, the district has been negotiating with the ACWD Operators Association, also known as the OA, toward a successor memorandum of understanding since March of 2018. The current MOU has been in effect from October 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2018. The parties were unsuccessful in reaching an agreement, and the OA declared impasse, requested mediation, and filed for fact-finding. The OA agreed to hold fact-finding and impasse procedures in abeyance until conclusion of the mediation process. In February of 2019, mediation processes began with a mediator appointed by the California State Mediation and Conciliation Service. During mediation sessions, a tentative agreement for the terms and conditions of a successor MOU were reached. The terms and conditions of the successor MOU were ratified through the association membership vote on March 25th, 2019. In closed session, item 8.1, the board discussed the terms and conditions of the tentative agreement towards the successor MOU. A summary of the key terms and conditions are as follows. The term shall be July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. Employee development tuition reimbursement shall increase by $250 for a new annual total reimbursement maximum of $5,250. Regarding active employee medical benefits, effective with the pay period that includes April 1st, 2019, the maximum monthly flex dollar allowance for health coverage for each eligibility level shall be as follows. For employee only, $1,062.26. For employee plus one dependent, $2,124.52. And for employee plus family, $2,761.88. Employees selecting a health plan that is more expensive than those maximum amounts will have their full premium covered up to the amount of the second highest cost HMO or PERS choice plan. Employees selecting a health plan with a premium more expensive than the second highest cost HMO will be required to pay the difference between the selected health plan premium and the district's contribution amount. The maximum district contribution for employees receiving dual coverage benefit who waive coverage through the district at each eligibility level shall be as follows. Employee only, $366.70. Employee plus one dependent, $733.39. And for employee plus family, $953.41. Regarding employee contributions towards medical benefits, effective the pay period that includes April 1st, 2019, the employee contribution towards medical shall be 0.25%. Regarding retiree medical benefits, for all new hires hired on or after January 1st, 2019, retiree medical benefits will be provided in the form of a defined contribution plan. The district contributions to eligible employee retiree health savings accounts or a similar vehicle shall be set at a percentage of $120,000 with the following percentages. Employees who have passed probation through 59 months of service receive 1%. For 60 months through 131 months of service, 2.5%. And for 132 plus months of service, 2%. Regarding wages, effective the pay period following adoption, all association classification pay shall be increased by 1%. Effective the pay period including July 1st, 2019, all association classification pay shall be increased by 3%. And effective the pay period that includes July 1st, 2020, all association classification pay shall be increased by 3%. Regarding career service pay, effective the pay period following adoption, the current career service pay provision shall be discontinued and the following career service pay structure implemented. For employees with 10 years of service or more, shall receive a total of 2% above their base salary. Employees with 15 years of service or more, district service, shall receive 3% above their salary, non-cumulative. And with employees with 20 years or more of district service will receive 4% above their base salary, non-cumulative. Regarding retroactivity, for all association employees employed by the district as of February 1st, 2019, a lump sum payment will be calculated from the pay period which includes July 1, 2018 for the general salary wage increase and career service pay if applicable. Regarding water certification premium, effective following adoption, the certification premium for water treatment T5 with participation in the supervisor standby pool shall be increased to 5%. The premium for the certification without the standby pool participation shall be 2%. The premium for a distribution D3 certificate shall be 1% with the following effective options. Option 1, employees hired before March 1st, 2019, who have a D3 or take the next examination in the fall of 2019 shall have the 1% premium be effective the pay period including July 1, 2019. Option 2, employees hired before March 1st, 2019 who do not take or pass the D3 examination in the fall of 2019 shall have the 1% premium effective the pay period following notification to payroll and human resources of their passing the examination. And employees hired after March 1st, 2019 are eligible to receive the 1% premium for possessing the D3 certification. And lastly, employees may receive certification pay premium up to a maximum of 2% unless they receive the T5 standby pool 5% premium. Other amendments with which are administrative and or non-substantive in nature are also included in the Successor Memorandum of Understanding, and these represent the key economic and business terms. So by motion before your board, the recommendation is to approve the terms and conditions of the Successor Memorandum of Understanding between the Alameda County Water District and the ACWD Operators Association, and authorize the board president to execute the Successor Memorandum of Understanding. Any questions?
Questions, comments? We have a motion for the staff recommendation.
I have a motion to approve staff recommendation verbatim.
I'll
Have a
second.
motion. We have a second?
I have second.
Second.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari, Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. Adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourning at, I guess, 9:08.